Hello, my name is Mason Ketela, and today I'm going to be presenting my how-to guide for 3D printing. To get started with 3D printing, you first need to understand how it works. There are two main types of 3D printing, FDM and SLA. FDM is short for Fused Deposition Modeling. The way that FDM printing works is by melting plastic and drawing it out layer by layer until you have your model printed out. SLA, or stereolithography printing, works in a similar but different way. Instead of melting plastic, it takes a liquid called resin and solidifies it layer by layer using UV light. Each type of printing has its own benefits, but for today we will be focusing on FDM printing since it is a cheaper and more beginner-friendly form of 3D printing. To get started with FDM printing, there are going to be two main things that you will need. The first is your choice of a 3D printer. This one is an Ender 3 V2 and is the one I currently own. I will discuss printer choice in a later slide. The next thing you will need is your choice of filament. Filament comes in many different colors and types. Some filaments won't work with some printers, and I'll explain why later. For now, let's look at choosing a printer that will work for you. When choosing a printer, there's a lot to take into consideration. Some things to consider are the size of the printer, the accessories, and also the price. Some accessories include built-in webcams or sending files to the internet. There are three main groups of printers. The budget printers are small, cheap, and have little to no accessories with them. Their print size is about 100 cubic millimeters or about 4 cubic inches. They are often under $100 for good reasons, as they are not very stable and often don't have good online support. These printers are often avoided, since they are often not built to last. The next set is the best for your buck. In here, printers come with the basic accessories and can be modified to add more complex accessories very easily. This group of printers will cost around $200 to $500 and have huge online support. Their print size is usually double of the budget printers, coming in on an average of 250 cubic millimeters, or just about 9 cubic inches. These printers are solid in their build and print quality. Just know that sometimes you will need to assemble these printers like these. The Ender 3 V2 takes about 2 hours to put together for a beginner. And for the last set of printers, we have top-of-the-line printers. These printers usually have large print size, best accessories, or both. This printer, the Bamboo Lab X1 Carbon, has many printing features, such as a built-in webcam and multicolor printing. These printers also have larger volumes with an average of 300 cubic millimeters or about 12 cubic inches. However, these printers do come in pretty costly. They usually run about $500 to $2,000, with some being upwards of $5,000. If you know that you are going to be doing a lot of printing and want your prints to be the best, it may be worth it to choose a higher end printer. So now that you have chosen your printer out, now what? Now you need to choose your filament correctly. Most printers nowadays are made for one type of filament called PLA, which is for polylactic acid. PLA is made from corn, sugarcane, and other ingredients, which makes it biodegradable, so you don't have to worry about harming the environment. PLA is the best choice for plastic since it has a relatively low melting point and has a strong bond. This means most printers will be able to handle it and give you a good print. However, depending on your printer, you may be able to handle other types of filament. The most popular ones include TPU, ABS, and PETG. These all have different properties and uses. TPU is flexible, which means you can print many things that you can't with others, such as shoes. ABS is very similar to PLA, however, it is slightly stronger and requires an enclosed space for the printer, so it doesn't tear when printing. PETG is the strongest out of the four options and is often used to make parts and tools that will be going through some stress. Keep in mind that each different material requires different printing temperatures and apparatuses, such as ABS, which requires an enclosed space. Before choosing which type of filament, make sure to read the printer's manual to see if it can handle them. So, how does the printing work? After you have your printer and choice of filament chosen and set up, it's pretty simple. The filament is loaded into the top of the printer at the extruder gear. It then pushes the filament through the tube to the nozzle and melts the filament. It then draws out layer by layer until you have a model. The photo on the right shows what it would look like on a smaller level, with the red triangle representing the nozzle. It prints out layer by layer until eventually your model is complete. The question you may now have is, how does the printer know how to print? This is where we need to look at something called the G-code. G-code, to put it simply, is instructions for the printer to follow to give you the model you want. G-code tells the printer many important things, such as temperatures, speeds, and locations it needs to travel to. If we look at these two lines, you can see where it says the temperature of the print bed and the printer's nozzle. We can also look at some of the points that the printer travels through to give us our print. G-code is pretty complex, so how does a computer generate it? This process is pretty simple. You first put your model into a slicer, which is a program that is designed to make G-code. The slicer then slices the model into thin segments. The thickness of the slices depends on how good your printer is. The industry standard is 0.2 millimeters, with some being able to do 0.1 millimeter. For reference, a human hair is on average of 0.075 millimeters. And once it has all of that ready for the G-code, it can be sent off to the printer. So how can we get the G-code to the printer? The first part is to find a model. There are many websites where you can find the STL files that you will need, with the most popular being Thingiverse. On Thingiverse, I found this collapsible katana that I want to print. After downloading the model, I will open up the slicer. Most printers are supported by Cura, but your printer may have its own slicer. A slicer is then used to cut the model into many slices, as described before. If we take a closer look at this one, we can see those layers. Once it is sliced, you will save the G-code on SD card and that you will put into the printer. For this print, it will take about 15 hours. After inserting the SD card and hitting go on the printer, you are done. Now that you know the basics of 3D printing, the possibilities are endless. Thank you for listening for my how-to guide for 3D printing.